All right, Chapter 2, The Facade. The greatest test of courage on earth is to bear defeat without losing heart. Robert Greene Ingersoll. The parking lot was completely empty, save for a black Bonneville idling in a remote corner, purposely out of view. All of the businesses in the unpretentious strip mall had been empty for nearly an hour, the lone exception being the used bookstore that the two men in the front seat of the black sedan watched intently. They sat motionless, exchanging no words, patiently waiting for the man inside to close up for the evening. The stifling humidity of another Philadelphia summer night seemed to give them no discomfort, despite the fact that both were dressed in black suits. It was nearly 10, yet from behind their blackened sunglasses their cold, unsympathetic eyes followed their unsuspecting quarry as he performed his nightly routine. This would be effortless. They'd done it hundreds of times. The two heads turned slowly in unison, following the solitary figure as he approached the front door from the inside of the now dimly illumined store. After nearly 2 weeks of surveillance, his large framed build was by now familiar. Several inches over 6 feet, broad-shouldered, slightly overweight. His wavy, dark brown hair was cut short and unimaginatively styled. His round glasses gave him the bookish look he no doubt preferred, but the high forehead and receding chin made him visually unimpressive. The unworried man turned out the last of the lights and locked the shop door behind him and headed wearily in the direction of the bus stop, oblivious to the automobile drifting slightly toward him, headlights off. The vehicle suddenly accelerated recklessly, screeching to a halt alongside the startled figure. The man whirled toward the car, visibly shocked that he had been unaware of the vehicle up until now. Heart pounding, the man's eye caught the expressionless face of the driver as he shut off the car. The driver's partner cocked the door open slightly. "Dr. Scott," the driver said stoically from the window, "my partner and I need to speak with you." "Do I know you?" Brian wasn't sure, which was more unexpected. Wasn't sure which was more unexpected, the car or being recognized by someone he had never met before. "No, sir, you most surely do not." "Who are you, then? How did you know my name?" "We know a great deal more about you than your name, sir," the driver's companion deadpanned. "Are you guys cops?" "No, sir." "Show me some ID, then." "We don't carry any," the driver replied. The driver stood in front of Brian, who had somehow missed his exit from the car. "Then I guess this conversation is over." He tried to mask his fear. "No, sir, it is not," the man in the passenger seat said as he deftly moved to the back of the car, positioning himself behind Brian, blocking any escape. "No need to be alarmed, sir. We have no intention of harming you, at least unless you give us no other choice." Brian hesitated again, unsure of what would happen next. He knew he couldn't take both of them in a fight, and they were most likely armed. "What is it you want?" he asked quietly after a few strained seconds trying to relax. The driver's companion answered, "Your country needs you, Dr. Scott. We're here to pick you up and transport you to your destination." "If you guys really knew anything about me, you'd know how ridiculous that sounds," he protested, his fear now giving way to aggravation. "And so who in the government needs me? Oh, wait, let me guess. The president, right?" "Not a bad guess," the driver monotoned and glanced at his partner. "Well, that's different. It's about time he returned my calls. Really, guys, if you're not going to arrest me or something, I'm going home." "Please, get in the car," the driver's companion said. "We have our assignment and we're prepared to do our job." "Give me a break," Brian sighed in annoyed disbelief. "What if I won't go with you?" "But you will," they both said in eerie unison. "Sorry." "We can do this with or without a scuffle, sir," the driver replied in what seemed to Brian an almost robotic way. "Your compliance will be gained, I can assure you. My partner is rather skilled in compliance measures." Brian looked at the driver's companion, who stood motionless but ready before him. Although he couldn't see the man's eyes, he felt as though they were probing him, searching for any vulnerability. His fear returned. "Sir, in the car." Brian hesitated again for a brief moment and then acquiesced. He had no real choice. As he got in the car, he breathed a prayer. We apologize for the inconvenience, the driver offered as they were on their way. Brian said nothing. He leaned his head back on the seat and sighed. Now what? He thought to himself. As if life wasn't complicated enough already, just once I wish something would happen to me that's just a little predictable. The thought suddenly struck him that these men had to be lying. For all he knew, he was the victim of mistaken identity and might be in terrible danger. But if they meant any harm, they had certainly passed up a perfect opportunity in the parking lot. They also wouldn't be doing what they're doing now, he mused, peering through the darkened car window. Now I know I'm dreaming. Brian watched in suspicious incredulity as the car pulled up to a fast food speaker, and the driver placed an order for 3 drinks. He could make a break for the restaurant or another building, but what if that only put other people in harm's way? As the car drifted to the pickup window, he glanced at the open lock on his door and took a deep breath. He could feel his heart racing. He clasped the handle and glanced toward the front seat. The driver pulled the drinks through the window, and Brian let go of the handle and wiped his brow nervously. We know you always stop for a drink at the 7-Eleven next to the bus stop, the driver notified him. I don't think I've ever had a more predictable assignment. Yeah, his partner added, you're about as spontaneous as a Swiss watch. Brian heard the familiar sound of the straw piercing the lid. Here, the man offered, handing Brian one of the Cokes, just to show you we're not all bad. Right, Brian replied, taking the Coke soda. This would convince anyone. Brian looked away and quietly took a few sips. Neither man in the front touched their drinks. Brian said nothing as the car headed onto the interstate. 10 minutes passed before he broke the silence. So how long have you two been watching me? There was no answer. Are you sure you aren't looking for another Brian Scott, maybe one who deals drugs or owes somebody money? Again, there was no reply. So which one of you is Dan Aykroyd? Brian said dryly, trying to draw a reaction. What matters to our superiors is who you are, the driver said. You're Dr. Brian Scott, the bookstore clerk with a Ph.D. and not much else. You don't even have a car. Brian didn't respond to his captor's stinging reply. He didn't know which he resented more, the tone or the fact that he actually had been spied on. He didn't feel like getting into an argument or explaining his career disappointments. I'd like some answers, he finally said, yawning as he changed the subject. Where are you taking me? We're not authorized to answer that question, the driver answered, glancing at his suddenly drowsy passenger. Brian barely heard the response. He unexpectedly felt disoriented and could hardly keep his eyes open. The driver's partner glanced over his shoulder into the back of the car just in time to see their passenger collapse on the seat. Nighty-night, Dr. Scott.